If you will send this video to Alex O'Connor, he will convert. Hang on with me. So recently there was a video chat between Daily Dose of Wisdom and Alex O'Connor, and it was titled, Why Atheists Can't Use Reason. And in it, Alex was being very open, and I really like this about Alex, and I think he's also been very thorough. But when he was asked about free will and consciousness, you really should pay attention to the way he described these things, because it shows that he has put a lot of thought into it, especially when he says, I feel like reason is something that happens to you, not something that you decide. That is very wise to say feel, because at the bottom of rationality, we so much depend on how we feel in pursuit of things. And so the example that he gives is, if I am given the option between 2 plus 2 equals 4 and 2 plus 2 equals 5, I don't really feel like I am making a choice. I kind of feel like it is happening to me. I have to accept 2 plus 2 equals 4 because it is true and reasonable, and thus it's going, to change my mind or change my perspective on something. And I think all of this, is kind of hinting at his views about God. If he was given just the right amount of evidence, it would be so convincing that it would just change his mind, because he would have to accept it. So Alex is very wise here, because he has plumbed to the depths of uncertainty. I can't tell you how many atheists or agnostics will say things so factually certain, and they haven't dug in deep enough to even plumb the depths of where they run into these very uncertain places that we spring from. But Alex is open about that. And one of the things that he states is maybe free will and consciousness exist in some kind of higher plane that we can't quite access rationally. He says, there's some people that are not going to like this, but I actually allow for that being true. And that is so wise, because to not allow for that means that we believe that by our minds we can comprehend everything. And that's pretty stupid. Any of us that have really looked into intelligence, you will find that, like, when you become super smart in one area, you become really dumb in other areas. And so to think that there's some kind of mind that can really understand all things, especially like free will and consciousness, Alex is being smart here, because he is saying, no. There might be a way that free will and consciousness exist in a pattern that I can't comprehend, so I allow for that. However, I want to stay in the realm of reasonability and deduction, which is good as well. Actually, both of these things are incredibly important, and they reaffirm each other. So it is very, very good to be reasonable. But it is also very good to be reasonable about things that are beyond our comprehension. And this is kind of where I got my argument from infinity from previously. You see, in every area that we deeply dive into, there's always more. So for instance, if we look at math, there is always more to discover and uncover. If we look into chemistry, there seems to always be more that we can figure out. When it comes to physics, there seems to be things about it that we don't understand, that are just beyond our comprehension. There seems to be more when it comes to scaling large or scaling small. There seems to be more always when we are pursuing knowledge. And if there's always more in every direction that we don't comprehend, then it seems very reasonable that there's always going to be more that we don't comprehend. It's a very rational position. But for this to remain true, there has to be some sort of lattice work for these things to hang upon. But I want to go back to Alex's premise, because there's a couple of things he hasn't quite considered, or at least he didn't consider it in this section of the video, which was the first 3 to 4 minutes of the video. But he said, give me 2 plus 2 equals 4, 2 plus 2 equals 5, and I just kind of feel drawn to one, not by choice, but almost by it just happening to me, maybe some kind of influential force. But there's two dynamics that we absolutely must take into place along with reason, and one of them is our heart, our emotions. One of the reasons that we would reject something is maybe that it hurts us. Now, we're given this mathematical example here that doesn't quite fit all examples of knowledge and truth because math is typically a sterile abstract of things. And so when he's using this math abstract, it's like, that's kind of universal. Well, backing off of that, if we say, we're also here, we're all already given what is true and false. We are given both things, and so obviously we're going to lean towards what is true. But it's not as if you have been presented a fact that you have to decide if that fact, 39 times 39 is 480. I haven't even checked that. I know that's not right. But one of the reasons I would be hesitant on even accepting that is maybe it doesn't feel right, or maybe I don't trust the person that just did that. So as I had just crafted those numbers, that they don't work out, they are not correct, and somebody would be like, I want to reject that because I may be hurt on this matter. So when it comes to God, we actually have to, if I'm going to totally be reasonable about this, I have to lay aside all biases. Now, this would include things that the Bible calls out in me that I don't really care for. I think this can be done, and I think Alex could do this, but most can't. Now, so recent, let's just use his slavery and genocide recent videos, I think within the last year or so. Maybe those things are emotionally repulsive to Alex, and so he wants to cast off the God concept because of those. Well, to be reasonably and rationally fair, he has to take anything that the Bible might say that's offensive and just kind of set it aside for a moment to rationally consider the scriptures. So we have to jettison emotional bias. Now with that, with the whole concept of 2 plus 2 being 4, the number one thing to consider is what I would call alignment, or the pursuit of beauty. You see, 2 plus 2 equaling 4 aligns better and more beautifully than 2 plus 2 equals 5 with my experience. So what I have actually done, Alex stated that I feel just compelled to 2 plus 2 equals 4. But if you actually back off of this, you have made a previous choice to search for beauty and to accept beauty first before allowing it. And 2 plus 2 equals 4 is so beautiful and so precise that I accept that. Now, can we ever totally and completely prove this? No, but I accept it because of how beautifully it aligns. So I want to ingest this pursuit of beauty. Now, we know there are some problems here because in the pursuit of beauty, we've heard the phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and we know that people have clashing views and perceptions on beauty. So, for instance, there are some really dark, twisted people that might like to take photographs of dead bodies in very contorted and awful manners and just take them and utilize them in art. And the more grotesque it is, the more beautiful it is to them. And so we might say, well, see, beauty here is conflicting, so it doesn't really prove anything. But yet it does. Number one is that we know that all human beings have some sort of scale when it comes to beauty, whether it is dark twistedness or, seeing the mountains and loving the trees and the sunsets. We all will rate beauty as having scales of beauty. And then as we get into the sterile aspects of beauty, the one thing that we all seem to agree on is that the more aligned something is with the reality around us, or the proposal is with the alignment, the more beautiful that alignment is, the more likely we are to receive it because it seems so perfect and beautiful. This is one reason we're all in function around truth, is because when you're told something that is true, it so beautifully aligns, we receive it. So, just like with Alex's video a while back with Dawkins, and they were kind of discussing where does good come from, and Dawkins was kind of caught, where we were all caught at, like, oh, good is good. Good just is, we all kind of know there is good and evil. Well, in the same way, we all know that beauty seems to exist, and it seems to be something that we're after, and it becomes one of our finest rationalization points. I choose to follow these aspects because they are beautiful. I choose to follow these things because they are so well aligned. And this is one of the reasons we like science. Let's say hard science, not necessarily soft science, not fraudulent science, but science, not even statistical probability science. I'm talking about hard factual science. It actually aligns so well with reality. We're like, that's beautiful. And then when we get into math equations that are precise and are helpful, we're like, that is so beautiful. But what we need to consider here is that proclaiming that the universe is chaotic, random, non-caring, impersonal, that is some of the most ugly concepts that one could ever even imagine. They're actually very, very grotesque, but yet somehow human beings are in the middle of this dynamic looking for beauty or beautiful alignment. And so the very, very hard question that we must ask at this point is, how does a materialistic universe, which would, lean toward this determinism that Alex is a proponent of, how does an unconscious universe produce in one the look for beauty? How does a universe that doesn't even know what beauty is produce in a human the pursuit of beauty? How does a universe in which there is no beauty produce in humans the search for beauty? And this is exactly where I think that Darwinian evolution begins to terribly fall apart and fail. I noticed this a while back, is that it describes things, supposedly, but it doesn't explain things. So, for instance, if you had a football team that had white jerseys on, evolution would say the football team with white jerseys ran down the field and won the game. That is like saying survival of the fittest or the will to live. But it doesn't explain what is happening. The explanation of why the white jersey football team wins is because they are in pursuit of glory and fame and a goal and accomplishment. That is the actual explanation of such things. So if we're going to be totally rational and logical about this, how can that which is ugly and not beautiful and not organized and chaotic produce something that is the first primary rationalization point for human beings, which is to pursue that which is beautiful to the utmost? And so if I can actually lay down my emotions about anything that biblical Christianity or statements from the Bible that might offend me, if I can lay down the emotions of it and look deeply into there being an infinite God that is beyond our understanding, that is more powerful, that is more organized than anything we could ever comprehend, who claims to have created the order and design of the universe, the alignment of morality and consciousness and free will and love. There is actually no more beautiful or well-aligned description of why a human being has or looks for beauty and purpose in this life.